Hi, and welcome everyone to our webinar on plagiarism. For our partner schools, EduBoston is in partnership with Baxon Academy, and we would like to give this brief webinar presentation on plagiarism and how to deal with it as a partner school. My first slide lets you know that we encourage you to communicate with your students regularly regarding plagiarism. Certainly when they arrive at your school, at orientations, at any opportunity, in group events, and certainly before any class or scheduled tests, remind the students what plagiarism is and what it means and the effects of plagiarism. Whatever your school policy is related to plagiarism, definitely remind the students of that policy. We know for a fact that many international students do plagiarize. Certainly they can be going through the effects of culture shock and cultural adjustment and can genuinely have a lack of interest or investment in their school project. We do know that international students are very grade focused and do have a fear of failure, and they don't want to necessarily get those low grades. Certainly in their home country, these students will be very used to getting A's and B's, and all of a sudden when they move to the US, they get a lot lower grades, so that can have a really negative effect on their self-conception of their ability. And also some students might be quite confident about their student visa and being here and think that they can just jump from one school to another school, and they have a genuine lack of fear of consequences. But one of the biggest reasons why we see students who plagiarize is because it just does not have the same effect in their country. Plagiarism is just not as serious in other countries as it is in the US. Even in Ireland and England, genuinely the consequences of plagiarism are not as strict as they are in the US. So for starters, we recommend that you have some sort of written agreement in your classroom that the students sign. We know from research that when you give an agreement for a student to sign, the first thing that they should do is write their name on the top of the agreement, and that gives the students a sense of ownership of that agreement, and they genuinely pay more attention to what they're reading once they've written their name on the top of the document. So that's a good tip that we've learned recently. But in this document, it should define what plagiarism is, give examples of it, and specify what the school's actions would be if a student did plagiarize. And then at the end of the one-page agreement, just make sure that the students sign, that they understand and agree. And absolutely, if you have students who do not have English as a first language, you need to make sure that they read and sign this agreement in their native language. So take the time to pay a translator to translate your document for you. This is an important document for the students to understand. When you're actually creating an assignment in your classroom, we have a little bit of advice for you on how to create the assignment. First of all, be specific with your topics and instructions. International students genuinely may not have had the experience of doing that type of assignment. For example, you might say, write a reflection. Well, for an international student, that might be something they haven't done before. So give them an example, be specific, how many paragraphs, what you expect. Give them the rubric for sure. That will definitely help them focus on it. Create shorter papers in advance. So maybe if you want them to write a reflection paper or design a project, you're asking them up front for shorter snippets of what they're doing and planning. So you're getting the outline, you're getting some rough drafts, and you're getting the project submitted in stages rather than giving them 2 weeks to do a whole assignment and never seeing what they're doing in those 2 weeks. What you can do is when you give writing assignments in the class, walk around, look at the writing of the student and get familiar with their style of writing. Every student has a writing accent. For example, if I was to write a paper on something, I would write with an Irish accent. I think you'd be able to tell that I was Irish from the phrases that I would use. So get familiar with the student's writing style in the class and meet with the students individually to discuss the assignment. Ask them, what are you planning? How are you going to write it? You can have spontaneous checks throughout the 2 weeks that the assignment is given. Have the students stand up and spend 30 seconds. Tell me about your work. Where are you in this assignment? What are you doing? Ask for screenshots of the articles or papers that they cite. So we don't want them to print everything, but maybe just take a snapshot of where they found that article. So teach them how to use print screen and copy and paste a screenshot. So you're asking for some screenshots attached with the paper, which is a really good way to show that they've done the research themselves, because screenshots are easy for you to pick up that they're the same or not the same as other students. Give the students at least one specific source to use. So rather than saying cite 3 sources, say to them, cite 3 sources, but one of them has to be the New York Times. So you're giving them a little bit of scaffolding there to point them in the right direction. You could certainly ask them to write a brief journal and maybe give them an outline of a journal of what you would expect. So day 1, day 2, day 3, this is what I did, this is what I did. And as they write that journal, it helps them reflect on how they're going about the process. So you're guiding them to avoid plagiarism. So that's really an important thing to do, is that guided journal. Ask them to create 2 opposing point of views, maybe a brief SWOT analysis on what they're doing, so you're giving them, again, some scaffolding advice on the assignment. And then change up your assignments. Maybe not do the same assignments every year. Change the time of year that you're giving those assignments, and change it up. Don't be predictable in that, because I think your students will get used to what you're doing quite quickly, and they also will talk from year to year about what you're doing. So one of the designs of the assignment that we want to see is that it is constructivist in nature, and by that we mean that it is going to persuade the students to think and inquire about the topic. It could potentially have multiple answers, multiple points of view. It does spark discussion, debate, further questioning. It expects the students to give evidence and reasoning, but it can point to big ideas. And is it possible that if the student was to do this assignment at the beginning of the year, and if you asked them to do the same assignment at the end of the year, would they potentially have different points of view on it? So that's really what we mean by constructivist theory of assignment design. And finally, what we want to talk about is, how do you detect plagiarism? What are the alarm bells that should go off with plagiarism? Well, certainly if you saw a sudden improvement in the writing, so it's badly written paragraph, and then an expertly written paragraph, I think you can tell that that was a plagiarized paragraph. The style of writing might be different. It might contain writing that's not directly linked to the assignment, and we would definitely see this in a plagiarized essay where one paragraph is kind of stuck out from the other ones. So also that you didn't see those sources discussed in the class, or there's a sudden shift in the paper. Certainly watch out for incorrect page numbers. That can happen. Changes in font or font size. And copying of long bibliographies with no quotes. That's definitely a giveaway that the student kind of pulled in that information from something else. So with all that said, I hope this helps you with detecting plagiarism in your classroom and working towards it. And if you need more information, just go to our website, baxenacademy.org. And thank you for listening.